Hi guys. Yes, I'm waiting for 6 o'clock. We have a few more minutes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi. So I'm still having a difficulty in the camera settings because when I put the phone this way, the horizontal way, the way it should be, landscape, is bringing issues. So I just read the way I am. I have my book with me. I hope you have your book with you. Oops. Oh. Anybody who is joining, or should we just start? How is your morning? How is your morning? I'm waiting for people to join. At least one more person. I can see one person is on. So I am waiting for at least one more person. So that will be like three of us. That is what I'm waiting for. And there's a big shadow. Maybe I should adjust my light. Wait. There's this shadow here. Anyway. Now the shadow is bigger because of the light. Okay, I should move the light. When I become a pro in this whatever, hey my friend, I'll give you tutorials. That's better, right? Ooh. How are you liking my fro? I'm still waiting for 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock is when we said we're having this. So 1 minute. Nanema. Do you remember when we used to be in primary school? And on Mondays we used to go for parade. By the way, I loved parades. I did. Uh-oh. Everything I try fails, or is it working? I loved parades because we got to sing, and I loved singing. I did. But then I loved singing a lot. We went to primary school with, can tell you. Anyway, we have 6 more minutes. 6 more minutes. Yes. I don't know how many of you have woken up. How many of you mko kwa mat, like commuting to work? Yes. How many of you? How many of you? Am I close enough? I hope I don't like, so that at exactly 6 o'clock we start. This week is off to a good start. I know that for sure. Yes, it is off to a good start. Before the weekends, I'll have known how to put my phone on horizontal, so that if you're watching me like on a laptop or on the TV, like you can see me well. I know that this one is mostly for shorts and reels and TikTok. You know, yes, the vertical way of putting the phone. Yes. But now for now, we work with it because it's what is working. Yes. One more person, please. Anyway, so as I was telling you, as we wait for the 5 minutes to 6 to just like, yes, I loved parades, by the way. One, I was a Girl Scout. It's to be called Girl Scouts, yes. And we thought to always be prepared. That was our motto. Yeah, and then what else do I remember about primary school? Do you remember we used to have loyalty? Ah, yeah, the loyalty pledge. Can you say it or you forgot? I remember. I pledge my loyalty to the president and the nation of Kenya. My readiness and duty to defend the flag of our republic. My devotion to the words of our national anthem. I think that's the far that I can say. Do you remember the loyalty pledge? By the way, do you? Do you say it when you were in primary school? Do they still say it now? Those who are in school. In primary school and I think also in high school. I think in high school we used to say it also. Oh, please light. Behave yourself. Anyway, I don't know. Did you remember saying it? My video is becoming dark. Let me check on that and then come back. Don't go anywhere. Is that light setting better? No. It could be better, but anyway. How about that? But there's a shadow. Anyway, we will perfect on that. At least you can see me. I am hoping so. I am hoping that you can see me. And I'm hoping that I am not too dull. Yes, we have 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. A girl who keeps her word. I said 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock it is when we are starting. So we are at 5:59. Get your books ready. Thank you for you who has his online. Or is it me who is online? Anyway. I hope I am focused. Yes, I am, and ready. And by the way, forgive my voice. I am just healing from a cold. That's why I was not online last week, because last week I didn't have any sauti. But now this week I have the voice. Yes. Yes. So how have you woken up? How are you? Tell me, how are you doing? Yeah. Oh, someone is going to work. And ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock. So let's get straight into the book so that we won't waste any time. Yes. Okay. So chapter 5 of the book. Chapter 5, getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. But then there's a big difference, because you can get wealthy and then you don't stay wealthy. And all you'll have is stories to tell people of how when I was rich. But then there's nothing as bad as getting wealthy and not staying wealthy. Okay, anyway. So it says good investing is not necessarily about making good decisions. It's about consistently not screwing up. Because screwing up happens, but are you doing it consistently, and are you getting out of the screw up? Ha, this is going to be interesting. Okay. The next page, which is page 55, there are a million ways to get wealthy and plenty of books on how to do so, but there is only one way to stay wealthy: some combination of frugality and paranoia. And that's a topic we don't discuss enough. Let's begin with a quick story about two investors, neither of whom knew the other, but whose paths crossed in an interesting way almost a century ago. Okay? Yes. Jesse Livermore was the greatest stock market trader of his day. Born in 1877, he became a professional trader before most people knew you could do such a thing. By age 30, he was worth the inflation adjusted equivalent of $100 million. Wow. By 1929, Jesse Livermore was already one of the most well-known investors in the world. The stock market crash that year that ushered in the Great Depression cemented his legacy in history. More than a third of his stock market's value was wiped out in an October 1929 week, whose days were later named Black Monday, Black Tuesday, and Black Thursday. Okay, so what happened? Livermore's wife Dorothy feared the worst when her husband returned home on October 29th. Reports of Wall Street speculators committing suicide were spreading across New York. She and her children greeted Jesse at the door in tears, while her mother was so distraught she hid in another room screaming. Jesse, according to biographer Tom Robinson, stood confused for a few moments before realizing what was happening. He then broke the news to his family. In a stroke of genius and luck, he had been shot the market, betting stocks would decline. You mean we are not ruined? Dorothy asked. No, darling. I have just had my best ever trading day. We are fabulously rich and can do whatever we like, Jesse said. Dorothy ran to her home and told her mother and told her to be quiet, because her mother was crying, thinking that they are also ruined. Oh my goodness. In one day, Jesse Livermore made the equivalent of more than $3 billion. Like, are you kidding? During one of the worst months in the history of the stock market, he became one of the richest men in the world. Wow. As Livermore's family celebrated their unfathomable success, another man wandered the streets of New York in desperation, sorry. Abraham Jamansky was a multimillionaire real estate developer who made a fortune during the roaring 1920s. As the economy boomed, he did what virtually every other successful New Yorker did in the late 1920s, bet heavily on the surging stock market. On October 26th, sorry, on October 26, 1929, the New York Times published an article that in 2 paragraphs portrays a tragic ending. Bernard Sandler, attorney of 225 Broadway, was asked yesterday morning by Mrs. Abraham Jamansky of Mount Vernon to help find her husband, missing since Thursday morning. Jamansky, who is 50 years old and an East Side real estate operator, who was said by Sandler to have invested heavily in stocks. And you hear people were committing suicide because the stocks had dipped. Sandler said he was told by Mrs. Jamansky that a friend saw her husband late Thursday on Wall Street near the stock exchange. According to her informant, her husband was tearing a strip of ticker tape into bits and scattering it on the sidewalk as he walked toward Broadway. And that, as far as we know, was the end of Abraham. Imagine, that was the end of him. Sorry, a girl has a cold. Oh. I know. That's disgusting, but we have to survive. There are 2 reasons why a survival mentality is so key with money. A survival mentality. Do you have that, by the way? One is the obvious. Few gains are so great that they are worth wiping yourself out over. The other, as we saw in chapter 4, is the counterintuitive math of compounding. Sorry. Let me get something right. Okay. Compounding only works if you can give an asset years and years to grow. It's like planting oak trees. A year of growth will never show much progress. 10 years can make a meaningful difference, and 50 years can create something absolutely extraordinary. But getting and keeping that extraordinary growth requires surviving all the unpredictable ups and downs that everyone inevitably experiences over time. We can spend years trying to figure out how Warren achieved his investment returns, how he found the best companies, the cheapest stocks, the best managers. That's hard. Hard but equally important is pointing out what he didn't do. He didn't get carried away with debt. He didn't panic and sell during the 14 recessions he's lived through. He didn't sully his business reputation. He didn't attach himself to one strategy, one world view, or one passing trend. He didn't rely on others' money. Managing investments through a public company meant investors couldn't withdraw their capital. He didn't burn himself out and quit or retire. He survived. Survival gave him longevity. And longevity, investing consistently after age 10 to at least age 89 is what makes compounding work wonders. That single point is what matters most when describing his success. To show you what I mean, you have to hear the story of Rick Guerin. You've likely heard of the investing duo of Warren and Charlie Munger. But 40 years ago, there was a third member of the group, Rick Guerin. Warren, Charlie, Charlie and Rick made, hey, what is it with R's today? Sorry, R-L-A, Leah. Leah, what's up? Warren, Charlie, and Rick made investments together and interviewed business managers together. Then Rick kind of disappeared, at least relative to Warren and Charlie's success. Investor Mohnish Pabrai once asked Warren what happened to Rick. Mohnish recalled. Warren said, Charlie and I always knew that we would become incredibly wealthy. We were not in a hurry to get wealthy. We knew it would happen. Rick was just as smart as us, but he was in a hurry. Oh, are you in a hurry to get rich? We all know some of the things we are doing to hurriedly get rich, which is not, in my opinion, a good thing. What happened was that in the 1973-1974 downturn, Rick was leveled with margin loans, and the stock market went down almost 70% in those 2 years. So he got margin calls. He sold his Berkshire stock to Warren. Warren actually said, I bought Rick's Berkshire stock at under $40 a piece. Wow. Rick was forced to sell because he was leveled. Okay. Charlie, Warren, and Rick were equally skilled at getting wealthy, but Warren and Charlie had the added skill of staying wealthy, which over time is the skill that matters most. Nassim Taleb put it this way: having an edge and surviving are two different things. The first requires the second. You need to avoid ruin at all costs. We are progressing. Applying the survival mindset to the real world comes down to appreciating three things. Number one, more than I want big returns, I want to be financially unbreakable. And if I'm unbreakable, I actually think I'll get the biggest returns because I'll be able to stick around long enough for compounding to work wonders. That is number one. No one wants to hold cash during a bull market. They want to own assets that go up a lot. You look and feel conservative holding cash during a bull market because you become accurately aware of how much return you're giving up by not owning the good stuff. Say cash earns 1% and stocks return 10% a year. That 9% gap will no end at you every day. But if that cash prevents you from having to sell your stocks during a bear market, the actual return you earned on the cash is not 1% a year. It could be many multiple of that, because preventing one desperate ill-timed sale can do more for your lifetime returns than picking dozens of big-time winners. Compounding doesn't rely on earning big returns. Merely good returns sustained and interrupted for the longest period of time, especially a time of chaos and havoc, will always win. Sorry. Number two, planning is important, but the most important part of every plan is to plan on the plan, not going according to plan. Okay? Planning is important, but the most important part of every plan is to plan on the plan, not going according to plan. That's like having a plan B. What's the saying? You plan, God laughs. Financial and investment planning are critical because they let us know whether your current actions are within the realm of reasonable. But few plans of any kind survive their first encounter with the real world. If you are projecting your income, savings rate, and market returns over the next 20 years, think about all the big stuff that's happening in the last 20 years that no one could have foreseen. September 11th, a housing boom and bust that cost nearly 10 million Americans to lose their homes, a financial crisis that cost almost 9 million to lose their jobs, a record-breaking stock market rally that ensued, and a coronavirus that shakes the world as I write this. A plan is only useful if it can survive reality, and a future filled with unknowns to everyone's reality. I think tomorrow I'll do the live at 7. Looks like at 6 o'clock you guys are not woken up. Anyway, a good plan doesn't pretend this weren't true. It embraces it and emphasizes room for error. The more you need specific elements of a plan to be true, the more fragile your financial life becomes. If there is enough room for error in your savings rate that you can say it will be great if the market returns 8% a year over the next 30 years, but if it only does 4% a year, it still be okay. I'll still be okay. The more valuable your plan becomes. Many bets fail not because they were wrong, but because they were mostly right in a situation that required things to be exactly right. Room for error, often called margin of safety, is one of the most underappreciated forces in finance. It becomes, in many forms, a frugal budget, flexible thinking, and a loose timeline. Anything that lets you live happily with a range of outcomes. It's different from being conservative. Conservative is avoiding a certain level of risk. Margin of safety is raising the odds of success at a given level of risk by increasing your chances of survival. Its magic is that the higher your level, your margin of safety, the smaller your edge needs to be to have a favorable outcome. Number 3, a bubbled personality, optimistic about the future, but paranoid about what will prevent you from getting to the future is vital. Optimism is usually defined as a belief that things will go well, but that's incomplete. Sensible optimism is a belief that the odds are in your favor, and over time things will balance out to a good outcome, even if that happens in between is filled with misery. And in fact, you know it will be filled with misery. You can be optimistic that the long-term growth trajectory is up to the right, but equally sure that the road between now and then is filled with landmines. And always will be. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. The idea that something can gain over the long run while being a basket case in the short run is not intuitive, but it's how a lot of things work in life. By age 20, the average person can lose roughly half the synaptic connections they had in their brain at age 2, as inefficient and redundant neural pathways are cleared out. But the average 20-year-old is much smarter than the average 2-year-old. The destruction in the face of progress is not only possible, but an effective way to get rid of excess. Higher. Imagine if you were a parent and could see inside your child's brain. Every morning you notice few synaptic connections in your kid's head. You would panic. You would say, that can't be right. There is loss and destruction here. We need an intervention. We need to see a doctor. But you don't. What you are witnessing is a normal path of progress. Economies, markets, and careers only follow a similar path: growth amid loss. Here is how the US economy performed over the 170 years. It shows. Annual inflation exceeded 7% in 20 separate years. Wow. Higher. A mindset that can be paranoid and optimistic at the same time is hard to maintain, because seeing things as black or white takes less effort than accepting nuance. But you need short-term paranoia to keep you alive long enough to exploit long-term optimism. Jesse Livermore figured this out the hard way. He associated good times with the end of bad times. Getting wealthy made him feel like staying wealthy was inevitable and that he was invincible. After losing nearly everything, he reflected, I sometimes think that no price is too high for a speculator to pay to learn that which will keep him from getting the swelled head. A great many smashes by brilliant men can be traced directly to the swelled head. It's an expensive disease, he said, everywhere to everybody. Next, we look at another way of growth in the face of adversity can be so hard to wrap your head around. And that will be chapter 6, which says tails, you win. You know the heads or tails? Anyway, that is it for today. Tomorrow we try at 7. Now that at 6 you guys are not waking up, but it's still fine. This episode will be saved up. If you want to watch it, you can get it on my channel. Yes, my channel is Life with Leah Muthoni, because that's my name. Thank you so much for your time, and until tomorrow, bye. You want to stop streaming? Yes, I do.